Welcome to this edition of America's Top Land and Ranches. We're headed to the sprawling grass range of Montana's Antelope Creek Ranch with John and Galen Chase of Chase Brothers Land and Ranch Brokerage, a vast 42,000-acre, low-overhead livestock operation with miles of native Montana grass, ample water, and breathtaking landscapes present an investment opportunity featuring quality and value. Coming up on America's Top Land and Ranches. The sprawling view shed at Antelope Creek Ranch has not changed much since the last American bison were taken from this land many years ago. With the exception of a few abandoned homesteads and developed water, it remains mostly undisturbed and unchanged. Antelope Creek Ranch is an enormous 41,900 plus acre, mostly deeded eastern Montana grass ranch. It is blessed with a sea of high-quality Montana grass and good water. Since the late 1800s, this area has produced great grains for cattle, which is why the trail herds came north and why it still remains one of the premier places to raise cows. The wild, independent, and natural character of this land is what defines the American West, and it's good to know that land like it is still available. Welcome back to America's Top Land and Ranches. I'm your host, David Z., former longtime associate publisher and national marketing executive with The Land Report, now serving as host of America's Top Land and Ranches, video podcast for land brokers. Visit our website at americastopranches.com for links to all episodes and to subscribe to our YouTube channel and for email updates, plus podcast hosting sites like Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and others. Follow us on Instagram and at Top Ranches on Twitter. In this episode, we're headed to eastern Montana and the massive Antelope Creek Ranch, a beautiful and authentic big sky country ranch with a low overhead livestock operation and upside potential. We're joined by listing brokers John and Galen Chase of Chase Brothers LLC Land and Ranch Brokerage, who will take us on a tour of this impressive, nearly 42,000-acre grass ranch. Based out of Sheridan, Wyoming, brothers John and Galen, along with their associate brokers, are a team of Wyoming and Montana natives with collective roots stretching back 3 generations in cattle ranching, ranch management, and conservation. With offices in Sheridan and Buffalo, Wyoming, the brokerage has a strong presence in the Sheridan area and along the Bighorn Mountain front, and has grown its reputation in the land, farm, and ranch industry with notable transactions throughout north-central Wyoming and central and southeastern Montana. Galen, John, welcome to America's Top Land and Ranches. It's great to have you on the program.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, hi, Dave. It's really good to be here. Thanks for this opportunity.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the Antelope Creek Ranch at nearly 41,900 acres. This ranch covers more than 60 square miles of Montana range. But first, I know you've got a family history in the Sheridan area, and you both grew up on a nearby ranch raising cattle. How about a quick review before we head out to Sumatra and the Antelope Creek Ranch?
Okay. Well, our family had been cattle ranchers in eastern Sheridan County for a long time, and we stepped off into land and ranch brokerage. I did in 2004, and Galen got into it in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And we like emphasizing land and ranch because that's what we grew up with, and we love big sprawling ranches, kind of like this Antelope Creek Ranch. It's not really too far from where we grew up, and the terrain and the landscape and the grasses are very familiar to us, and it's a real honor for us to be able to represent a ranch like this.
Yeah, Dave, the ranch we grew up on was a working cow ranch. We raised registered red Angus cattle and sold bulls and females all around this country and even to different places in the world. So it's selling real estate and being involved in marketing real estate was an easy segue for us when we left the ranching business. And but our roots really are in production agriculture, and just due to our love for cattle and in the people involved, and just the lifestyle that comes with that. And boy, when we get an opportunity to list a place like Antelope Creek, we really get pretty excited just because of the nature of this ranch and how authentic it is, and it really just speaks to what we feel like is the quintessential working grass ranch, for people looking to really spread their dollars out and have a low operating overhead ranch. This is low cost operating ranch. This is definitely one that should be on everybody's radar.
Oh, I agree, especially when you factor in the low overhead, relatively low maintenance requirements aspect of running livestock on this ranch, all of which we'll talk about here in a few moments. But as you start to examine the details of this property, you become aware of just how much of a sprawling, seemingly endless expanse of land it is. There's a sense of untouched natural beauty as far as the eye can see. And as we mentioned in the intro piece, it's good to know that ranches of this magnitude and opportunity are still available to the right, persons or investor.
Dave, when you're on this ranch and, the big sky name that's given to Montana you can understand why. You said it right. It's a sprawling ranch, but but it's just an incredible Charlie Russell type view shed out here as well. Beautiful place, beautiful vistas, and just a lot to see. And it's not the typical shining mountain, streams flowing through it place. But for people like us who really understand and appreciate this kind of beauty, it's definitely right up there in terms of the aesthetics for a Montana ranch.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that, Dave, is when we were talking earlier about our background in ranching. So we've also been through Ranching for Profit school together, and part of that is the ecosystem management, managing the grasses. So when we got on this ranch, the first time I got out, I was pretty impressed with the diversity of the grasses, the soil structure on a ranch like this. And you're sitting actually at it's a three-way divide on this ranch where it sheds water into three different watersheds. And so speaking of that water that does fall from the sky, you want to absorb as much of it as you possibly can into the ground like a big sponge. And this ranch impressively does that. You hardly see any introduced grasses out there. It's mostly good native bunch grasses. Those are the grasses that evolved under grazing pressure out there. It's great to see it still in that condition, and it's a good ranch. It'll run a lot of cows.
No doubt, it certainly sounds that way. Let's talk for a minute about the location of Antelope Creek Ranch. We're in east central Montana in a town called Sumatra, but not terribly far from Billings and the amenities of that city, including the international airport there. So maybe just talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, the location is kind of centrally located Montana, a bit off to the east, but about 50 miles from Roundup and probably an hour and a half drive to Billings, Montana. It's just an easy hour's drive down to I-94 and Forsyth. Major feed area in Custer and along the Yellowstone River to the south of it for feedlots other kind of services that might be needed for cattle sales or feed. Although what's really unique about this country that the Antelope Creek Ranch is in is that normally people don't need a lot of winter feed, so which is really, I think, a big difference to a lot of ranches you see out there. This is truly a year-round grazing ranch that, if managed properly, doesn't require much, if any, winter feed.
And that really speaks to the low overhead aspect of this ranch, correct?
Absolutely. I think, a good ranch foreman or manager, or whatever, should be able to handle this pretty much on his own. Of course, you might need some seasonal help here and there, but it's capable of operating pretty much on its own without a lot of supplementation.
The one word that keeps coming back to me as we look at this ranch is vast. Obviously, it's enormous in size, but vast not just in the sense of grazing opportunities, but also in the landscapes, the view shed, the investment opportunity, and other elements like hunting and wildlife.
Yeah, and another V word to go along with vast would be value. I think there's just an immense store of value in that land, because not only for the livestock part of it, but for any land investor, you look at this as almost like an office building, and the other occupants of that office building might be hunting, falconry, stuff like that, carbon sequestration. I would think the falconers would have a heyday on this ranch. There's good upland game birds and miles of places to fly your falcons without losing them. And I know from some of the falconers that we know that they like the kind of the wide open country where your falcon doesn't fly over a hill and they're gone. But they'll be able to chase some of the upland birds up there. And of course, carbon sequestration is a real thing with these native prairie grasses out there, and storing that value in the soil. And then, of course, the hunting of antelope, mule deer, and then you're grazing for whatever classes of livestock and or species. It gives you a huge amount of opportunities from which you can capture some value out of the land.
Yeah, you're not going to find elk on this ranch, Dave, but you will find some really healthy and abundant herds of really first-class mule deer, and the populations are we don't have a game count, but there's a lot of deer on the ranch, and also antelope. Those are going to be your primarily big game species. Like John said, there's some really good upland bird populations, including sage grouse, sharptail, and Hungarian partridges. It should be abundant as well. Back to what you were talking about too, just the vastness of it. From on a clear day, you can stand up on some of these divides in the place, and I hesitate to saying that there's mountain views on this place, but there really are, and you can look over and see the snowy mountains south of Lewistown, and it's just an incredible view shed for people that just appreciate being outside and having a lot of room. You truly are in ranching country here, so you don't have a lot of neighbors, which in my mind is a good thing. But what neighbors you do have are like-minded, big ranching operations that is typical of this area of Montana.
Can you give us a quick summary on the ranching operations?
Right now, the ranch is being operated as a cattle ranch. Forecast for this year to have probably at least 800 cows on the place, and that's going to come in a combination of some yearlings and cow-calf pairs. The ranch historically has had sheep on it, so I would encourage anybody that's looking at either just an exclusive sheep operation or cattle or both to look at this ranch. I think it's non-exclusive, but any grazing animal is going to do pretty well there.
Well, and the other thing about that is when you run a combination of species there, they don't eat the same thing. So you can increase your carrying capacity by running multiple species, since they don't eat the same things. And sheep are kind of a follower, and you graze ahead with cows, and then sheep come back and they eat different things, the forbs and that sort of thing. So you can easily increase your carrying capacity if you run a multi-species operation, and then different classes of livestock as well.
We've talked a little bit about the carrying capacity, and right now it's safely rated at about 800 animal units year round. I think that number has got a lot of upside and it wouldn't take a lot to increase it, along the lines of good management. But the water that's on the place is always a limiting factor for carrying capacity. And this ranch has two main water lines that can be expanded and are set up to be expanded. They just haven't been. And with the addition of some additional tanks on that line and extensions of them both, as well as perhaps some water storage capacity being added to the lines, you would be at perhaps a 25% increase in production pretty quickly without a lot of capital costs associated with that.
Yeah, and then along with those pipelines, you have 43 reservoirs, and then you have a multitude of other well and stockwater rights filed. I think there's 72 water rights filed with the Department of Natural Resources in Montana.
Appreciate you saying that. I think it shouldn't be overlooked on this place how significant the water development has been.
The natural beauty of this ranch is so appealing. Are there any aspects to the landscape that we haven't covered?
Well, one thing I was going to mention to you, in between there are some cuts in the grass out there, and you'll see some old sandstone formations on the ranch that are really neat. Even if, such as the photo you're showing right now, you've just got these features out there. They almost look animated, and it's kind of interesting. And even the guy that's just all about grass, you still like to have visually stimulating landscapes, and you certainly will have that here. And it's pleasing. You've got these, for instance, the sandstone features there. You can see the old cross beds. And in fact, in that photo right there, there's actually a big mule deer hiding in the shadows over on the far left. And but you see the sandstone, the cross beds in that sandstone showing that it was under a sea of water at one time. Well, now you've got a big sea of grass overlaying all this. You got those great, the nutrient dense soils that are just perfectly suited for these strong Montana grasses. And you get some other plants as well as grass. And in that case, you can see some yucca plants there, which have their own beauty when they flower. And but yeah, there's always going to be something interesting to see on this place.
We're talking with John and Galen Chase of Chase Brothers LLC Land and Ranch Brokerage, based out of Sheridan, Wyoming, serving Wyoming and Montana. The website is www.chasebrothersllc.com. If you've got questions about the Antelope Creek Ranch or any of the other listings on their website, call them. I'll give you a couple of phone numbers. Toll free at 844-YO-LAND, 844-WYO-LAND, or 307-675-1964. Or you can email them at info@chasebrothersllc.com for more information. We're discussing the Antelope Creek Ranch in Sumatra, Montana, currently listed at $14 million, and the listing is active. John and Galen, you guys visit and represent a lot of great Western properties, premier ranches, etc. In your view, what are some qualities of the Antelope Creek Ranch that make it an attractive investment prospect?
I would, to speak to that point, I would say yes. And as we see inflation starting to creep onto the scene, a place like this is a great hedge against inflation. It's a vast piece of land, and land has always been a good hedge against inflation. You see a bunch of the wealthy landowners across the United States, some of which actually own property nearby and surrounding this ranch. It's an opportunity not to be overlooked right now, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt, David. I mean, this is truly just the simplicity of it, in the sense of what you have to do to own it, is number one. And then two, I think it's the price we're seeing paid for a lot of these other ranches that are, say, closer to town, or a stream, or a recognized area. That's going to translate into prices. It's going to start pushing prices up kind of everywhere. And I think where we are in this thing, just from a value standpoint, price wise, we just feel like it's really competitive right now. And looking back, and a few years from now, people are going to think that, boy, they really missed out if they didn't get in today on this thing. So.
Yep, the Antelope Creek Ranch is well qualified to be on the short list of anyone interested in this type of land investment. Its enormous size, quality, operational efficiency, room for growth, and value. Before we sign off, any final thoughts?
Well, we just encourage anybody that's just, if there's got questions about it, and we understand that Sumatra, Montana may not be on everybody's radar screen, but if they've got any questions about this part of Montana, or just operational considerations or questions, just questions in general, boy, we'd sure welcome a call and love to talk with you about it. And better yet, just get you on it and let you see it for yourself.
Yeah. And for somebody who might not have the management in place, we can find that. We know people who can and will manage a place like this and don't mind living out this far away from town. From an investment standpoint, you don't have to live there to reap the benefits of the investment. And there are people who love working on a place that don't have to be next to town.
Antelope Creek Ranch, just an outstanding example of a large, high-quality Montana grass cattle ranch located in Sumatra, Montana. Listed with John and Galen Chase of Chase Brothers LLC Land and Ranch Brokerage. Thanks for joining us on the America's Top Land and Ranches podcast. Visit our website at americastopranches.com, where you'll find links to all of our podcast episodes, our YouTube channel, and a list of podcast hosting sites for all of our past episodes. John, Galen, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate the opportunity, Dave.
Likewise, and we'll look forward to the next time you join us on America's Top Land and Ranches.